No warning, no countdown, no chance to look away. At exactly the same moment across Earth, every screen changed. Phones vibrated in pockets, billboards glitched mid-advertisement, emergency monitors buried beneath layers of forgotten infrastructure powered on for the first time in decades. Satellites adjusted their orientation without human command. One image stabilized everywhere: a human child. She stood alone on a raised circular platform inside a chamber of blinding white light. The illumination was surgical, merciless, designed to leave nowhere to hide. Her clothes were plain, unmarked, intentionally generic. No symbols, no identifiers, just a child reduced to a specimen. She couldn't have been more than 9. Her fists were clenched so tightly her knuckles had gone pale. Her breathing was shallow, fast, controlled only by sheer effort. She was doing everything she could not to cry. The camera drone descended slowly, predatory in its patience. Behind her stood the emissary, tall enough to dwarf her without effort. Crimson skin stretched tight across a powerful frame. Golden eyes glowed faintly, not with rage, but with confidence. His armor was ceremonial, etched with sigils of conquest and submission, polished to reflect the light like a blade. "This is a public transmission," he said calmly. His voice was smooth, cultivated, designed to inspire trust. Broadcast to all recognized civilizations. Across Earth, conversations died mid-word. Parents froze where they stood. A woman dropped a glass in her kitchen, the sound sharp and final. Soldiers rose silently from chairs in command rooms, eyes locked on the same image. The child glanced toward the lens, not pleading, searching, as if she needed proof the universe hadn't abandoned her. "This child," the emissary continued, smiling slightly, "represents your species' weakness." He raised one hand, a device unfolded with a controlled mechanical hum, elegant, precise, not aimed, not activated. The implication alone sucked the air from the room. "We will not act yet," he said. "This is a demonstration. Observe." Across the galaxy, civilizations leaned closer to their screens, some curious, some uneasy. On Earth, something far worse happened. Everyone went silent. Not panic, not fear, silence. And the galaxy failed to understand that this absolute unified stillness was the first and only warning it would ever receive. Earth did not scream. There were no emergency sirens ripping through cities, no leaders flooding the airwaves with emotional declarations, no threats hurled back into the void. Instead, something far more disturbing happened. Every human embassy, on every planet, station, and orbital habitat activated at the exact same moment. Diplomatic halls that had stood quiet for years filled with blue holographic light. Walls dissolved into data streams. Consoles awakened. Observers noticed something strange immediately. There was no confusion, no debate, as if the response had already been decided long ago. A single message propagated across every known frequency: civilian, diplomatic, military, and black classified channels civilizations didn't even know humans had access to. 3 lines: "Release the child, stand down, this transmission is being recorded." No punctuation, no emphasis. Calm, precise, final. The alien emissary's head tilted slightly. Genuine surprise flickered across his face before he masked it with amusement. "You know negotiation?" he asked lightly. "No appeals? No emotional pleas?" The child swallowed, eyes still fixed on the camera. Earth did not respond. The silence stretched. Seconds passed. For the first time, the emissary's grip tightened around the device in his hand, not in anger, but in calculation. His golden eyes narrowed just enough to betray uncertainty. "You mistake restraint for fear," he said, laughing softly. "You always—" The broadcast cut. No explosion, no scream, no final image, just sudden, total darkness. Across the galaxy, analysts stared at blank displays. Commentators stumbled over half-formed theories. Military commanders leaned back slowly in their chairs, hearts beating faster than they would ever admit. Because every advanced species understood what had just happened. Earth wasn't deciding if it would respond. Earth was deciding how much of itself it needed to reveal. Minutes passed, then hours. The alien empire released statements blaming technical irregularities. Spokesbeings assured the galaxy the situation was under control, that the child was unharmed, that Earth was overreacting.
Earth said nothing. That silence began to terrify them, because humans were known for noise, argument, debate, endless internal conflict. Silence was not their nature. Silence meant preparation. Reports began arriving from across the galaxy. Navigation arrays froze mid-calculation, defense grids powered down without error messages, quantum relays fell into perfect synchronization, then went dark. No explosions, no casualties, just precision. Alien fleets drifted powerless, their crews staring at dead consoles that should not have been reachable, let alone compromised by an external force. Then the message appeared. Simultaneously, on command displays, personal implants, and secure military cores thought impossible to access. This is your final warning. The language was unmistakably human. Panic spread through command hierarchies as engineers realized the truth. Humanity had not hacked their systems in response. Humanity had already mapped them long ago. Every protocol, every redundancy, every secret safeguard. The galaxy watched an empire understand, too late, that provoking humans was never about violence. It was about inevitability.
The child was returned without spectacle, no cameras, no audience. A quiet transfer aboard a neutral station. Human personnel arrived in plain uniforms, no insignia, no decoration. Their movements were calm, synchronized, precise. Not soldiers on parade, professionals finishing a task. The child hesitated once, then reached for a familiar sleeve. A human hand closed gently around hers. Safe. Only then did Earth speak again. The message was broadcast to the galaxy. Not a threat, an explanation. "You crossed a boundary," the human representative said calmly. "This is where restraint ends." No raised voice, no anger, just fact. Earth did not retaliate. That fact alone confused the galaxy. There were no executions, no summary judgments, no quiet disappearances carried out in the dark corners of space. The fleets remained disabled but intact. The alien leadership remained alive, escorted, not dragged, into custody under interstellar law. Then the trial began. It was not held on Earth. It was held where everyone could see. A purpose-built interstellar tribunal chamber came online, larger than any courtroom in recorded history. Tiered platforms held delegates from hundreds of species. Translation fields shimmered invisibly in the air, ensuring that every word, every pause was understood exactly as intended. The proceedings were broadcast without commentary. Evidence appeared first: the original transmission, the child on the platform, the calibrated lights, the deliberate framing. The moment the device unfolded in the emissary's hand, every frame was slowed, annotated, time-stamped, not sensationalized. Context followed. Internal alien communications surfaced next, orders issued days before the broadcast, rehearsals for public messaging, probability models predicting psychological dominance over humanity. Private correspondence revealed something worse. They had believed humans would beg. Then came the technical evidence. Human analysts demonstrated step by step how Earth had already possessed access to alien infrastructure long before the threat was made, not through brute force, but through patient observation, decades of quiet learning, and an almost obsessive commitment to understanding potential adversaries. "We did not prepare for war," the human prosecutor stated calmly. "We prepared for responsibility." The phrase rippled through the chamber. Witnesses were called. Alien officers contradicted one another. Records corrected their lies in real time. There was no shouting, no theatrics, only inevitability. As hours passed, the galaxy began to understand something profoundly unsettling. This trial was not about punishment. It was about precedent. Earth was teaching the galaxy how consequences worked when boundaries were crossed, slowly, transparently, and without emotion. Fear would have been easier. Justice, it turned out, was far more terrifying.
The deliberation did not take long. That, too, unsettled the galaxy. By the time the tribunal reconvened, most observers already knew the outcome, not because it was obvious, but because it was unavoidable. The evidence had not been overwhelming in volume, it had been overwhelming in clarity. The chamber lights dimmed slightly as the presiding council signaled for silence. Even species unfamiliar with human expressions recognized the shift in atmosphere. This was not ceremony. This was conclusion. The charges were read aloud, each one translated instantly, flawlessly, stripped of emotional language. Illegal detention of a minor, coercive threat broadcast to civilian populations, violation of interstellar non-combatant accords, abuse of diplomatic authority. The emissary stood alone at the center platform. Gone was the confidence, gone was the practiced calm. His armor had been removed, not as humiliation, but as protocol. Without it, he looked smaller, not weak, exposed. When the verdict was delivered, there was no reaction from Earth's representatives, no nods, no satisfaction. They had not come for validation, they had come for closure. Guilty, on all counts. The chamber remained silent. Then, something unexpected happened. The emissary lowered his head, not in despair, in understanding. For the first time, he comprehended the scale of what his empire had misjudged. Humans had not reacted emotionally, because emotion was never the foundation of their response. They had acted from principle, from a line drawn so deeply into their collective identity that crossing it triggered not rage, but resolve. In that moment, the emissary understood the true verdict being delivered to the galaxy, not against him, against the idea that humanity could be tested without consequence.
There was no victory celebration, no monuments raised, no speeches broadcast to mark the moment. Earth did not need remembrance. The warning had already been delivered. In the months that followed, changes rippled quietly across the galaxy. Diplomatic protocols were rewritten. New clauses appeared in interstellar law, brief but unmistakable. Non-combatant humans, especially children, were designated untouchable under all circumstances. Not because Earth demanded it, because everyone else insisted. Military academies studied the incident not as a battle, but as a case study in restraint. Analysts noted how humanity never escalated beyond necessity, yet achieved total compliance. The child never appeared in public records again. No interviews, no symbol, no exploitation of her story. She was allowed to return to being exactly what she was meant to be, a child. Years later, when the incident was referenced, it was never called a war. It was called a correction, and always spoken of quietly, because Earth had not shouted, had not threatened annihilation, had not demonstrated overwhelming violence. Instead, it had shown something far more permanent, that there existed a boundary in the universe, simple, unambiguous, and absolute. Do not harm our children. Earth continued to trade, to argue, to disagree with itself loudly and endlessly, just as it always had. But no civilization ever again mistook that noise for weakness, because now the galaxy understood the truth. When humanity goes silent, it's already too late.